Amazing. So here we are for another episode of the Becoming Cosmically You podcast. And today we have Victoria with us. So, Victoria, what I loved about your story was how you were in corporate for so long and then you literally gave up that life to live in rural Ireland. So, how did that come about? I'd love to know.
Oh, I mean, I wasn't just in corporate, I was like the corporate girl. I was in corporate leadership for decades.
Mm,
Um, I spent a lot of my career trying to find or create meaningful purpose. So I was in marketing, I was in consumer research and insight, which I loved more. Then I moved across into marketing, then I moved into kind of commercial leadership and then general leadership. So I was a deputy CEO of a multi-million pound company. I was really successful, really young. And I always had this itch that I wanted to do things that mattered,
mm,
which took me to the post office. I was in a leadership role in the post office because I had an image of kind of little old ladies collecting their pensions and, service to the community. And I arrived at the post office and discovered it was like a ruthless sales machine.
yeah.
Left there, I moved out to the countryside, and I joined an organization, for example, that made home adaptations for the elderly and disabled. I
Mm,
was an executive shareholder in that company, and I have never worked in a more toxic environment. So I
mm,
like kept trying to find these spaces. And eventually in 2013, I left and set up my own company, but I ran away from that toxic environment. I quit with nothing to go to. So went and did a bit of consultancy for about a year. And then one of my clients became my next employer. And that was a bit more aligned because I'd kind of worked with them as a consultant on the outside and really liked them. So
mm,
the final phase of my corporate career was actually a very happy one, and I was in education. So I finally felt like I was doing something that mattered,
mm,
that had meaningful purpose. It was about adults returning to education. I was a school dropout. I had a very flaky educational background and then got back on track and did quite well academically. So I really felt connected to the mission of this organization. Um, and and I worked my way up the ladder and I became the deputy CEO, which in that case was de facto CEO. I ran this private university, but it became apparent to me that because it was a private institution, there were shareholders, and if it hadn't been shareholders, it would have been a committee of some kind. There's always someone trying to get you to do stuff that
mm,
you don't believe in
mm,
energetically, that you're not aligned to.
mm,
So here I was after years of my career trying to get more, I was very ambitious, more and more leadership, more and more responsibility, more and more authority to do the things I believed in. I realized it never ends.
mm,
It never ends. If you have shareholders, you are always going to be squeezed on your integrity or on your values. So I kind of started getting to this point, and I think, I mean, you mentioned before we started this call that you're a bit no filter, like a bit sweary in that, and I was definitely at a point where it was sneaking out, like I was saying things, that were giving away the fact that I was not in alignment. So I was kind of calling in a bit of tension, I think. And then COVID happened.
mm,
March 2020, COVID happened. So I had to lead this organization through COVID, get everyone home, get everyone safe, get everyone reassured, which was actually a really amazing thing to experience. And again, to be like a leader of service, because
mm,
the only thing I was interested in was making sure everyone was okay. And I
mm,
knew that if we made sure people were okay, the business would take care of itself.
mm,
So got everyone home and safe. And then within about 3 months, my vice chancellor and shareholders wanted to bring all of the staff and students back. And I was really connected to people, and I knew people were not ready for this. Whatever your views on COVID, and I wasn't especially scared of it, but I was connected to people. I knew people were scared.
mm,
And it also didn't make sense to me. It wasn't logical. When we were an online first university, like there was plenty of, we were well set up for doing things remotely.
mm,
And there was this agenda to get everyone back when people weren't ready, when it was inconvenient. None of it made sense. It was pure mistrust. Oh, if they're at home, they're all sat on their hands watching, watching TV.
mm,
It was pure mistrust, and it was bullshit. It was
mm,
absolute bullshit. But the other aspect of it was I was, for the first time in 20 years of my career feeling this sense of spaciousness, because I wasn't doing the mad commute into the office. I was seeing my kids, I was meditating, I was running, I was getting more done than ever, but I was kind of experiencing this different balance. And I just saw that kind of misalignment I'd been feeling became so crystallized on the matter of remote working versus bringing everyone back. I said, I'm not coming back. I don't think we should bring people back. It's too soon, and I'm not coming back. Which led to one of those amicable exits where you gently retreat to space and say, right, misalignment is too great, which was fine. It worked well for me. That is the institution that awarded me an honorary doctorate. So there's no bad blood there. It's an amazing university, and I'm delighted with the time I spent there. But so then I had this proper thinking time and space to think, well, what do we do now? I think the egoic part of me was thinking, I got to make the push and become a CEO of something. And then the soulful part of me was like, I've had this little taste of a life of spaciousness, and I want more of it. So I had this kind of inner tension going on. And I had some garden leave time. So I had some time to kill. So me and my husband, who is Irish, came over to Ireland, as we did most summers, to bring the kids to see the relatives and stuff. But this time, instead of a sort of rushed fortnight, we gave ourselves the whole of that month of August. And like, my job was to figure out, what do I want to do with the rest of my professional life? And we had a bit of money behind us. And we had often talked about buying a place in Ireland, like maybe having a holiday home. And then COVID, I don't know whether you remember, but at the beginning of COVID, it almost went a little bit like dystopian future. People might have become cannibals, they're elbowing little old ladies in the shopping aisles to get to the pasta and the toilet roll. Like, that glimpse of what could happen definitely had us in a mode of, we might be better off not in one of the most densely populated towns in the Midlands, which is where we were living at the time. So we thought it might also be good to have like a bolt hole in Ireland, where at the time land was very cheap. So we spent that August with me trying to not make any decisions over my future, other than let's just house hunt. We found a house right in the rural part of Ireland that was on a lake, that had a woodland, that was like idyllic and cost about threepence, because at that time this part of Ireland cost nothing. It's changed since. And we decided to buy it. So we started that process, and I very quickly realised that I will never be having a corporate job living in this part of Ireland, because it's a 2-hour commute to anywhere of any size, at least. Now, actually, probably with remote working having developed on the way it has, maybe I could have done, but at the time it wasn't all as developed, and any kind of proper leadership job was not going to involve me being based at home. It was going to involve a lot of travel. And I finally maybe had the courage to go, I choose flexibility and freedom over the big badge.
Wow, that's cool. That's brave.
Thank you. I didn't know who I was for about 18 months. It was a bit of a journey of the soul. And it wasn't that I was really like into status. It was just that I'd always, well, for so long, my professional life and my identity had been one and the same thing. And I've got 3 lovely children, but my professional persona was the stronger one over my identity as a mother, was definitely secondary to my identity as corporate leader. I was good at it. I loved making interesting things happen and working with people to unlock potential. And, I loved that aspect of what I did. And so then being just me in my little home office in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of lockdown, it was just like, it was a lot of change all at once. It was brilliant. I just had to keep taking myself on and releasing stuff and figuring stuff out. And yeah, but it was quite tough going.
It's a lot. Identity comes up a lot actually in these podcasts. We generally attract people who are really high achievers, and either they've been in corporate and transitioned like you have to having their own businesses, or they've got really, really successful businesses. And it's a theme that comes up a lot actually, because you know what, we are forever changing as humans. And of course, we're evolving as well and connecting to all kinds of different aspects of ourselves. So it's really, really hard to hold this notion of identity because, in truth, we are everything, everywhere, and we are in everything, and we are so expansive that I think almost the notions of identity and personality really need to dissolve, and you really need to dissolve everything and just go with your feelings and your heart. What does this moment, what do I need to do in this moment? And I love how COVID was such a catalyst for you. I personally didn't buy into any of it, if I'm completely honest, and I talk about that a lot. I actually call it convid. um
Yeah. It's really interesting because I'm in exactly the same place. But because I was in this corporate leadership role, like in the early days, actually, if I'm honest, in the early days, I think I was as scared as the next person, like, because it was so mental and there was so much fear mongering, and I was responsible for a large number of people's well-being in a professional sense. In the early days, I think I was a bit scared of it, but quite rapidly, also, I've got a background with research and statistics, so I was always quite clued into the data, and quite
it
rapidly,
makes sense.
this
Yeah.
does not hold up. This does
No.
not hold up to research scrutiny. Like, what the fuck is going on? And then when we were coming over to Ireland, I remember watching a BBC News broadcast where some big terrifying figure was plastered on the screen. There was a small print that completely qualified the number and made it not at all like.
No.
And I was like, okay, when the BBC is qualifying in tiny print, like, what is the agenda here? Now, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, well, what kind of weird experiment was that? But yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful catalyst for me and for many, many other people I know. Um, so yeah, I'm
Yeah.
quite grateful for it, even though it
Yeah.
was.
I am as well, because it really split the timelines as well, which is what it was orchestrated for from a cosmic point of view, to split the timelines between the people who were going to remain in this fear timeline and then the people who were actually going to elevate out of the fear timeline. And the media really bought into the fear and really stirred a big part of shit around it. And I'm kind of thankful because it brought me closer together with the same kind of people. People
Yeah.
were like you, who have a background in statistics, or they just had some joined up thinking and common sense going on and just thought, you know what, this don't fucking add up here. It just seems weird. People are wearing masks made in like India, in smelly factories somewhere by child laborers.
And
And
also, that's like putting a petri dish on your face.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
have a few germs and then enclose them in a nice, warm, moist space. Yeah, that's going to be great. That's really a
yeah,
sensible move. And the impact, as a psychologist, the effect of mask wearing on babies and children
yeah,
is criminal.
yeah,
Like, they've done some studies into how like babies take in their mother's face, a newborn baby, that's what it is focused on.
yeah.
That is not,
No,
like, it's produced all sorts of anomalies in terms of cognition, behavior. Like, it's so wrong.
I
And you're right,
can't.
it split people, but I also think there's a real tragedy in that. Like, I already had a tense relationship with my family of origin, and it worsened because they were in one side of it and I was in the other, and they were angry with me that I
Mm,
was, for example, not getting vaccinated, and
mm.
I felt angry with them that they were feeding the pharma machine that was.
Yeah, and they were. Yeah, exactly. I think there will always be a lot of emotion around it, but it's almost like everyone's like forgotten about it now.
But it's still there. It's like it's a indelible layer of us all now. So
Yeah.
we forget about it consciously, but it created so much. Like, it did something to everyone that is there now.
Mm. I
Yeah.
I I really honestly and truly right from the beginning knew that it was a big hoax. And I remember when, because I don't watch TV, I don't have a TV in my house at all. We're
Yeah,
one of those hippie types that don't own TVs.
we
And
don't either.
and so I don't really watch the news. I haven't watched the news for over 10 years. When I unplugged from corporate over 10 years ago, all that side of me just went. I just turned it off. And I remember people telling me, and I was just like, no, who's believing this? And I would find it quite funny because I just thought, can't believe how many people are buying into the same lie. And people were actually truly fully believing it and then reporting you for stuff as well. And I just thought it really showed
No.
through the cracks how almost like the old literature is based around like people sticking together through times and reporting on each other. What was it called? The Lord of not what was the one? Forgot the name of it now. Anyway, they're on an island and they're all
Lord
like
of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it was very
GCSE
Lord of
English
the
text.
Flies.
Yeah. Yeah, the
You
way,
remember
yeah.
that book?
Yeah, well, I always remember that book. Yeah, we have it actually because the kids have had to study it more
Yeah,
recently. Yeah, but it was also, it was very reminiscent of Nazi Germany and people
mm,
shocking neighbours for harbouring Jews and stuff. I mean, it was just, yeah, it became a fascist state.
yeah. And it wasn't that someone was a Jew; it was someone that wasn't wearing a mask. Was
Yeah, or
it was just a
unvaccinated.
different thing, and people couldn't see that. I remember saying to people, about Nazi Germany and breaking down how Nazi Germany happened, and it was the same thing that was happening in 2020 or whenever it was. I just thought, oh my God, the people that are going on along with this are the people that sent people to the camps.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were truly.
But
And you
it was an
always think, how
unnerving
did it happen? How
majority.
did it happen back then? But it happens because nobody says anything or everyone goes along with it. I,
Yeah,
I
in
didn't go along
nature.
with anything. I mean, we live a pretty lonerish life by choice anyway. So we would go to the parks, we'd meet up with friends, we'd go to the supermarket, we'd do everything that we needed to. Sometimes I wore earphones so I could block out all the noise around me because it was quite deafening at times, wasn't it? People's panic into toilet roll.
Yeah, the energy was uncomfortable. I mean, like you, I went about life as normal, and actually I really liked living my life because I found it quieter, energetically messier,
Mm,
but audibly quieter because you'd go out into the streets and there was no one there. I loved it. We had an
yeah.
allotment, we would walk through the woods. I liked that no one else was around because people were following the guidance and not leaving their homes and all this unhealthy mad shit. Um, I found it so peaceful. I found it and no aeroplanes, so peaceful. It was
Mm,
lovely. But I did miss, like we did see friends, but we also had friends that, were not willing to meet. And so I missed connection. And I do think connection is like a fundamental human need, and not having it, I think, wasn't great. So I liked it when things started opening up, but then when things kind of fully went back to normal, I thought it's a shame because everyone's sped back up again. And I think
mm,
there's something really healthy about the way everything started moving more slowly.
mm,
That's what it felt like to me. And I'm not very good at moving slowly. I think I still have some of that old wiring of, get shit done, that
mm,
served me so well in my corporate years. And
mm,
I think it was so healthy for me just to have to move slowly through my experience. And I'm better at it now, but I thought it was sad the way it was like a tape slowing down and then speeding back up again. And it's like that slowed down moment felt so, I think energetically something really interesting happened, and a lot of people kind of connected at a different level, but a lot walked away from it again.
mm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, surrender is definitely one of the lessons that we spend so much time on with our clients because most of our clients are like overachievers. They're used to overperforming and always on the go, and then suddenly you're asking them to slow down and they just go into this panic state. But I can't do that because I'm used to doing this. So I'm like, well, is that fulfilling you, or are you overwhelmed? Is that bringing you joy?
Yeah.
So you're right. Noticing like how you're feeling about slowing down is really, really, really very masterful. I love that.
Mm.
Anyway, it's enough about COVID. um, what kind of work are you involved in at the moment, Victoria? Who are you working with? What are you up to?
So So it's been a bit of a transition. When I left corporate, so I've been involved in coaching and NLP for many, many years. I think that's one of the things that helped me be quite gifted as a leader, was that I knew how to coach and unlock people's potential through my early training in coaching and NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. For anyone that doesn't know, it's a method of working with the mind and behavior to catalyze beneficial change and create outcomes that you want. So when I started, it was obvious as a psychologist and NLP coach, it was an obvious place to kind of start my business. And I just put word out and started doing some coaching with people. But I mostly did it around leadership at that time, because it seemed obviously where my credentials were. But what happened, interestingly, is more and more I found people coming to me, and a lot of them were professionals and in leadership. But what they really needed was something deeper, was more work at the identity level, at the belief level, more work around alignment, around surrender, these kinds of things. I'm also very into mindfulness. I don't have a TV either. I meditate 2 hours a day instead, when most people would be watching Netflix. And so I started doing more and more work in the kind of emotional release space, because I believe you can have all the skills in the world, but if you're sort of energetically, emotionally blocked, you can't make success happen, because there's too much kind of tension pulling apart in different directions. So I started out thinking that I'd be coaching and mentoring people around leadership skills, and very quickly realized that I could have the greatest impact helping people get unstuck, get into alignment, get kind of unblocked. And that has become very much the center point of what I do now. So I do that with people individually. I also have small group programs, and I still do stuff around leadership. I actually designed and built a massive curriculum around leadership, which was really impactful for the people that came through it, but I never felt quite aligned to it. And I realized later it's because I know that even when you hit really top leadership, it doesn't deliver unless it's you own something. And so I, designed this magnificent program. I was specializing in helping women be really masterful at the leadership level. And these women were coming through the program, getting great pay rises, director level positions, absolutely flying it. And I would just feel guilty. I'd be like, I know what they're in for. So I think there was a kind of natural call to something that felt more aligned, which for me, it was helping people realize if you get into alignment, you have choice, to really be more self-directed and energetically aligned around what you do, which is the key to being a successful leader. It's not the only key, but it's definitely the key to a more satisfied and fulfilling life. So that's what I do now, is I help people release emotional and energetic blocks, create alignment, get a deep understanding of their purpose, their values, and learn how to manifest. So I do work in the transformation manifestation space. I'm quite, my background is academia research. I'm quite pragmatically minded. So I've got a foot firmly in the woo camp, but actually I work with tools that are absolutely make sense from a kind of earthly, psychological or scientific quantum physics based kind of understanding of things. I use the term understanding loosely. And that's my sweet spot, really, is kind of that zone of people that want to make change happen, but maybe aren't ready to throw themselves fully into the, woo end of how things can happen. So I think people like the fact that I can explain what we're doing and why from a psychological or quantum physics standpoint.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, my team said you're like the technical person. You explain why it works.
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, it's not an easy thing to explain, but I do my best efforts on trying to help people understand in layman's terms why manifestation as a thing, why law of attraction actually isn't just woo-woo craziness. It actually has very strong foundation. So yeah, that's quite fun. I used to have a radio show. That's one of the, I always get involved in a million projects because I like variety. I managed to get involved in this radio show. One of my features was called The Science of Woo. And I would literally
I like that.
pick a topic and just explain to people the quote unquote scientific rationale or justification or studies that had been done that would demonstrate why this actually is real and makes sense and why it works. And I really enjoyed that.
I love that. I love that because I think there are a lot of people in that category that want to learn how and why and all the things. And then there's people that we work with that they're not really bothered that much about the
They
how.
can give
They
themselves
just,
up to it.
they just go by the feeling and the outcome. So I think there are all kinds of different people. You know, you've beautifully niched in on the technical people that are like you.
Yeah. I'm quite envious of those people that can totally just kind of, that have faith, that just have faith. Because I think I'm quite good at having faith, but I like some rationale underneath it as well. There's definitely like a bit of both with me. I think, wouldn't it just be lovely to just, I sometimes think, yeah, that'd be a nice thing, but for whatever reason, it's not my thing. I like a bit both.
That might change over time though. I found that I was the same, moving from corporate into working for yourself is a completely different energy. And I
True.
found like it took me a number of years just to wake up in the morning and not panic about stuff, truly just think, you know what, everything's going to be fucking okay because it's been okay for like 3-4 years
Yeah.
and everything's fine and it just keeps getting better and better. So I think actually sometimes the trust in what's happening is more about a pattern and a learned behavior. Whereas when you've been in corporate for so long, you're kind of programmed to work within rules and you're working in like a pragmatic way. Whereas when you work for yourself, you really have to let go of the what's it called, the brake, the handbrake.
Yeah.
Let yourself go. And I don't know if you've experienced that, like the shift is completely different working in corporate to working for yourself, being like the CEO of your own business.
It's definitely completely different energy. And it's funny actually hearing you articulate that, because one of the traits I had was that all of those years I worked, I was always rebellious. Oh, I was rebellious at school. I was a dropout. I was rebellious everywhere I went. I was rebellious, and I was rebellious all of my corporate years. So that whole working within process thing was never something I was really affected by, because if I saw that a process wasn't working, I would can it. I'd write a new one. I was, I moved through it in a very kind of fluid and flexible way. And in running my own business, I'm never scared. I've got absolute faith in my ability to create abundance. I've always had that, or to create enough, of what I need. I know I'm always okay. But I think there's something about giving over. So my faith is in myself, which is very disrespectful to the universe. I don't see it as a partnership. I see it as I'm really good at making happen what I need to happen. And there's maybe a hint in there of a legacy belief that I have to work hard. And I've kind of let that one go, like it's much more fluid and easy these days for me. But that's led on to a consequential belief, I think, that because I'm not working hard, I'll only ever create just enough. So I find it interesting, you get into so many layers, don't you? And but what I'm not good at, or what isn't me, is just releasing all of it, just going, I'm in your hands, I never quite get to that stage. There's an element of, no, I'm at the reins of myself. I know I'm really good at making stuff happen. And I know that it is a natural gift manifestation. Like extraordinary things happen. I put a boat on a vision board. There's a boat down the driveway. We didn't buy it. A friend just turned up with it and said, it's mental. My car broke down. We were in a right hole over what are we going to do about our car. My in-laws were going on holiday and they said, you can use our car. Well, it's just ridiculous. So it's like, I get given all of the evidence. And yet somehow there's this, but only this much. Just enough. But it is always enough, and I can't complain because we, by most people's measures, have a fairly gifted existence. But yeah, I think it would be lovely to have that next level faith. It'll unfold when it's ready. I know that.
It will. It definitely will. So where can people find you, Victoria, if they want to stalk your energy or what you do?
So my website is thesuccesssmith.com. There's 3 S's in the middle there. It's one more than you're expecting. thesuccesssmith.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Victoria Stakelum. I'm on Instagram at SuccessSmith. And I also have a Facebook group that I put a lot of kind of free resources into, which is the Success Collective. So yeah, those are the places to find me. And there is a quiz. I do have a quiz, which is available on the website, which helps people understand if they might be energetically blocked, which might be of interest to some people. So you can find that on the website. All the good stuff's on the website, really.
Beautiful. What we'll do is we'll put all your links in the bio anyway when we well, I say we, the royal we, my assistant will do all that for us.
Lovely.
And she'll make sure your links are there that you want to share, okay, Victoria, and we'll make sure people can find you easy.
Thank
So
you.
are there any other final messages that you want to share before we stop?
Oh, I think just to say, just based on my own, just what we've talked about, my own experience, for people to know that things unfold. I do believe that things unfold as they're meant to. So I know I've talked about me not having faith in the bigger picture, but having faith that all unfolds in its own sweet time is probably a nice message to end on.
I love that. I love that. It gives so many people hope as well. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to start recording. Thank our listeners and watchers, and then we'll have a quick chat before your other meeting. Thank you so much for being with us, Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, I went purple then.